Another video on the illegal immigration. Everything's coming to a head, so let's see what's going on.
Repeatedly saying that it's time for Congress to fix the broken system. With that, we bring in Florida Republican Congressman.
It's funny, the White House has no one else to blame, so now they're blaming Congress. Guess who's running Congress? The Democrats. Guess who's running the presidency? The Democrats. So now they're finally blaming each other. Go figure.
Michael Waltz. Congressman, great to have you with us today. I want to start with this from moments ago in the White House briefing room. This is the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, when she was asked about these Republican governors transporting migrants to other states. Watch this.
Republican governors interfering in that process and using migrants as political pawns is shameful, is reckless, and just plain wrong. And remember, these are people who are fleeing communism, who are fleeing.
Most of them are coming from Venezuela, which are fleeing socialism, which is what the Democrats are trying to implement in the United States right now. We literally had an AOC-backed Democratic candidate chanting socialism wins. So they're literally fleeing something that they're trying to implement in the United States. So the hypocrisy, it's like layers of hypocrisy, just like one on top of the other. Like there's so many contradictions that they're finally collapsing in on themselves. And it's funny to try and see them point the finger at everybody but themselves. It's funny how it's the Republican governor's fault. You know, it's not Biden's fault for opening the borders. It's not Kamala Harris's fault for being in charge and not fixing them. It's not Karine Jean-Pierre's fault for saying that people aren't walking over. You know, it's Governor Abbott's fault because they're having, 5,000 plus per town coming through a day. But New York's overwhelmed with their 7,000 migrants, or it might be up to 10,000. It's like a little less than 10,000. They're overwhelmed. They're to a breaking point, is what they said. That their sanctuary city is to a breaking point with 10,000 people. Look what just happened in Ukraine. Like 2 million people just uprooted into like neighboring countries. Like New York is such a joke. Chicago is shipping them out of Chicago to neighboring towns without any notice. You know, like I said, it's layers and layers of hypocrisy.
Hardship.
Congressman, welcome. Good to have you with us tonight. What's your reaction to that from the White House this just about an hour ago?
Yeah, thanks, Martha. I would say, what is shameful? What is wrong is for the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to sit before the nation on the Sunday shows and say the border's secure, which is an absolute lie.
2 buses of migrants showed up outside Kamala Harris's house after she just got done saying that the border's 100% secure. But she won't go to the border and look. So now all she has to do is look out her window and she can see the migrants. So now she can, try and lie now.
I mean, anybody with any common sense can see that it's not. And then to say that we're going to go after the root causes by advocating for billions of dollars to go into Central America when we know that the cartels take anywhere from 20 to 30%, the corrupt governments take 20 to 30%, you're actually feeding the problem into a negative spiral that's making it worse. And on the governors, look, this is an issue of fairness, Martha. Why is it fair for all of these border cities, the Uvaldes, the San Antonios, the El Pasos, to have to absorb this crisis, whether it's their hospitals, their schools, their roads and bridges, But all of these cities in Chicago, Martha's Vineyard, Boston, New York shouldn't have to deal with it. This is a basic issue of fairness, and they're feeling just a fraction of the pain that all of our border cities and our border states have been feeling.
Exactly, and they're sanctuary cities.
Yeah, you know, I'm so struck by the hypocrisy of this whole thing, because these individuals from the border, they've been being sent across the country for a long time. I mean, we spoke back in April to Representative Astorino in New York, and when he was upset about what was going on with planes landing in the middle of the night, none of these same governors said anything.
Remember a while back when Biden sent a bunch of planes in the middle of the night to Jacksonville, Florida? Oh, you don't? Yeah, that's because it wasn't on the news. It was covered up. Yeah, you don't remember that. But, you know, it's all over the news that, you know, 50 migrants got sent to Martha's Vineyard. That's all over the news. Like, layer and layer of hypocrisy.
They weren't upset that these planes were going there. Watch Rob Astorino back in April, folks at home.
These secret flights were coming from El Paso and McAllen, Texas into Westchester County Airport and other regional airports in the dead of night. And I was asking questions. I have a letter that I sent February 1st to the president wanting to know who's coming in, where they're being placed, if there are kids, and some of them are, what schools, who's paying for this. Obviously, we are the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't remember representatives from Martha's Vineyard or D.C. or Manhattan, any of them being upset about this when he was talking about it, Congressman.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are a Biden administration taxpayer-funded contracts with a number of NGOs that are flying these people in the dead of night to all of these same locations.
All the migrants being shipped from Texas, they voted on it. They voted to ship them out. The people voted on it. Biden shipping them to states in the middle of the night on the taxpayer dollar, done in 100% secrecy. It's ridiculous.
Then it's fine. But if you have Governor DeSantis or Governor Abbott or Governor Ducey doing it in the middle of the day where everyone can see it, then suddenly we're up in arms. We're having a collective political meltdown. The only difference is this is for all of the taxpayers to see rather than sneaking them in. Either way, all of those services that American citizens and legal immigrants deserve are now being taxed by millions and millions and millions of people that we just can't afford to feed and house and clothe the entire world.
Exactly.
And you hear about the sex trafficking and the drugs coming across the border that Bill Maloogian reports on every day. I don't see it a lot on other networks. But, you know, what is the vice president doing about the...
Right now, there's the purest fentanyl that's ever been measured here in my local area. That's ever been measured. It's coming in right now. People are dying left and right.
Those root causes. I mean, it's okay to move people around the country to share the burden, but the bottom line is that you've got hundreds of thousands of gotaways and all these drugs that nobody seems to be doing anything about in Washington.
You know what? You want to get it? You want to get at the root causes? Take on the cartels. This should be at the top of the agenda with China, that's producing the fentanyl. We ought to use military assets after those cartels, by the way, and reinstitute the Remain in Mexico policy while these people wait for their asylum papers. Those are root causes. Instead, we have a massive tractor beam and incentivization mechanism for these people to make this very dangerous journey. And 30 to 40% of the girls making it are sold into human trafficking or sexually assaulted. That is just a humanitarian crisis, and it's absolutely wrong.
It is. Karine Jean-Pierre wants to say that, you know, it's just wrong that they're shipping people across the country. For one, they're sending them to places like Martha's Vineyard, all right, New York, Washington, D.C. These Martha's Vineyard is one of the nicest places in the country. Washington, D.C., New York City, not so much. But all they want to do is blame the Republicans and not take on any other responsibility of the humanitarian crisis that they created by opening the border. You want to blame the Republican governors for shipping them across the states? Okay, cool. You opened the border. You created this crisis. It's just that simple.